Welcome to the TV Lounge, a place where we get together to view and discuss lesser-known TV series. You know, there are plenty of places to discuss the latest hit shows, but we're here to tell you about some older programs you might not have heard of or watched. Some are quite good, and others, well, they're worthy of discussion and dissection. So have a seat here in the extra recliner and join us in the TV Lounge. Well, hi, Andy. Welcome to another TV Lounge podcast.
Hey there, Dad.
I noticed we have gotten some more comments on the website, and I got an interesting offer today. That was the Aaron Makem over at the Sci-Fi Dig podcast. He has offered to host a forum for the TV Lounge. So I think I'm probably going to take him up on that offer. So by the time you hear this podcast, we might actually have a forum associated with the Sci-Fi Dig forum as well. That'll be kind of cool.
Yeah, that'll be really nice.
Hey, I thought since we're kind of TV-oriented, maybe it'd be fun to start off each episode with just a little bit of TV news, just some things that I've run across here recently online. I hear that there's a lot of new shows. Matter of fact, on my last Batwings Beat podcast, I gave a rundown of a whole bunch of new pilots that are being considered by the networks. But there's one I missed, and I wanted to get your reaction to this.
Okay.
And this is one that the Sci-Fi Channel has actually given the green light to. It's a pilot that they're calling 3 Inches. And what it does is it centers on an underachiever who gains the power to move any object with his mind, but only 3 inches.
Okay.
And he recruits a team of fellow heroes. Each have their own, what they're calling less than spectacular abilities.
Uh-huh.
They're calling it a fun, smart, offbeat spin on the superhero genre. And it's going to be very tongue-in-cheek.
Right.
Now, so what do you think of that? A show about a kid who can only move something 3 inches.
I think that sounds pretty funny. It almost reminds me a little bit of Mystery Men.
I watched Sanctuary, and I just read the Sanctuary has actually started filming their 3rd season, and they have an order for 20 episodes. And I thought this was rather interesting. Did you know that Sanctuary shoots almost entirely on green screen?
I know that I knew that they did, at least at first. I was curious if they were still doing that because I haven't seen it for a while, but.
Now, I have something to ask you because you're more of a film guy. Mm-hmm. You know more about it than I do. This is also the first series in North America to use the red camera. Pardon my ignorance, but what's the red camera referencing?
The red, that's interesting. The red camera is a digital cinema camera. It's pretty much the quality of normal film cinema camera, but it's digital. They're kind of an interesting company. It was started by the guy who owns Oakley, just kind of really into technology and wanted to make this amazing digital cinema camera. And so
what this is basically, you're telling me, is it's a digital camera that looks like film.
Yeah, and you'll have people on both sides kind of argue back and forth of, what's better, digital or film, and a lot of film guys will say that, still nothing ever will look as good as film, but the Red it's a pretty amazing camera, and just as a company, what they've done is pretty awesome.
It must work for them well, the red camera and the green screen, because in 2008, Sanctuary picked up an Emmy Award for visual effects. Anyway, I wanted to just briefly run through, how Sci-Fi has these movies that they make? They're made for sci-fi movies.
Yeah. It's
usually some monster or something, and it's kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? They're more suited to Mystery Science Theater.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, there's a few that they've actually said that they're going to be putting out, and some of these are just screaming MST. I know they are. Let me give you a quick rundown. There's one, actually might be kind of good. It's Riverworld, which is based on the classic science fiction novels by Philip Jose Farmer. This story centers around a large part of humanity that lived on Earth who suddenly find themselves resurrected on a terraformed planet that's known as Riverworld. And that was quite a popular series of novels. Here's another one that I don't think we really need to even describe other than to say the name of it. It's called Mega Piranha.
Yep, that kind of sounds like an MST-worthy movie.
And here's Mothman, about 5 friends who covered up an accidental killing when they were kids, and now there's a monster bent on revenge.
And would that be sort of along the lines of, like, the Mothman prophecies, that kind of...
I'm not sure,
legend?
or if maybe it's a cross between that and I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Okay, yeah.
But we have a monster who's ticked off.
Yeah.
Okay, or maybe it's more like Orca. How about this one? Mongolian death worm.
That sounds awesome.
It does sound awesome, doesn't it?
Yeah.
There's one called Witchville. It's about a new king who must save his people from witches who are sucking the life out of the land. But it turns out he has a connection to one of the witches. Yeah.
All right.
Oh, here we go. Sharktopus. It's a genetically engineered shark-octopus hybrid that goes on a killing spree on the beaches of Mexico.
Wait, and this is seriously...
These are seriously...
That's gotten the green light?
Well, I don't know how much they've gotten the green light, but Sci-Fi Channel has announced all these movies.
You know, this gives me hope. As a filmmaker, just knowing that those movies are potentially getting funding, gives me hope.
Anything you could throw out would get money too, right?
Exactly.
All right. How about one called Red? Red is about a gal who reveals to her fiancé just what he's getting into if he marries into her family. It's a family of werewolf hunters. And then when he's bitten by a werewolf, he becomes one of their targets. And so Red has to step in and yeah, no. Anyway. Oh, and I know everybody's been looking forward to this one. Lake Placid 3.
Man, this is quite a list.
More crocodiles, and they're bigger and hungrier.
Uh-huh.
How about The Lost Future? It's humans in a post-apocalyptic world where everyone has regressed to the Stone Age. And somehow, you'll like this, somehow a young man is discovered that can still read. And books have become the key to rebooting civilization. If only they can get to where the books are being kept by an evil warlord. Here's this one.
Sort of sounds intriguing to me, actually, a little bit.
Okay.
We'll see.
You might like Scream of the Banshee, a creature that kills with her scream. Here's one.
That's one monster that I've just never thought that was like a cool monster power. You know,
screaming,
killing with your loud voice.
Yeah. How about Morlocks? And yes, it's in reference to the old time machine Morlocks. It says mutated Morlocks from the future squeeze through a window in time, and it's a murderous rampage.
Okay, now wait a second. Mutated Morlocks.
Like the Morlocks weren't mutated to begin with, right?
Yeah, so I guess.
Enough said.
Yeah.
And finally, The Eighth Voyage of Sinbad. And this one might actually be pretty good. Sinbad journeys to find the golden head of the long-lost Colossus of Rhodes. That's it. Those are movies coming up on the Sci-Fi Channel. Makes you kind of glad you've got either cable or satellite, doesn't it?
It does.
I guess enough of upcoming TV. Why don't we jump right into our third episode of Crime Traveler? This one is called Fashion Shoot. As the episode starts, we see Sonia Duvall being interviewed in her home by a journalist. Duvall is a fashion designer, and she's talking about an upcoming fashion show. Outside, we see a man moving through the bushes carrying a rifle. Just as Sonia reaches for her glass of wine, it is shattered by a bullet. Then a second shot comes through the window, breaking a nearby lamp. Both women drop to the floor as bullets continue to come through the window. The next scene is inside police headquarters, where Kate Grissom is briefing everyone on the shooting from the night before.
Sonia Duvall, she's one of the country's top designers, and 3 weeks ago she started receiving death threats, anonymous letters, phone calls.
So why didn't we hear about it then?
Local police just thought it was the work of a crank at first, but last night's attack changes all that. Sonia's winter show was targeted in 2 of the letters, so I'm going to put a security net around the show until it's finished. I want a visible police presence front of house and undercover officers behind the scenes. Slade, that's you.
She says she wants police at the fashion show, including Jeff Slade and Holly Turner. Grisham explains that Holly is to be working inside the fashion show.
Oh, and Turner, if you're not too busy, I want you as well.
I am too busy.
Well, it can wait.
I can't go undercover. I'm not a detective.
Backstage, Turner, I need someone who can sew.
I can't sew.
Well, improvise.
We now go to the rehearsal of the fashion show. Sonia Duval is not only orchestrating everyone, she is impatiently demanding missing show elements like smoke and a banner displaying her logo. As workers bring in the logo banner, we see a woman approach Sonia with a piece of clothing for the show. Sonia is not pleased with the woman's alterations.
Sonia, is this okay?
No, it's not okay. It's useless. I said I wanted the hem taken down 2 inches.
Yeah, but
do it again.
Slade is talking with Holly backstage about Duval's show and the threats on her life. Holly doesn't think Duval's life is in danger and says Sonia Duval isn't a very big name in fashion anymore.
No one's going to shoot her, Slade. If you ask me, Grisham's just overreacting.
How'd you work that one out?
She's not such a big name. I mean, no one buys her stuff anymore, so who'd want to see her dead?
Holly also points out that all the publicity from the death threats might be just what Sonia's show needs.
At this point, the workers unveil the large banner logo at the back of the stage. On it are the words, "Sonia dies tomorrow." Slade asks where the logo came from, and Sonia's business partner, Clifford James, says it was put together the night before in the church where the fashion show is taking place. Slade asks if anyone got into the church the night before. Clifford says no, the church was locked. But then he says anyone could have gotten in. Sonia asks Slade to take her home. When they leave, Holly approaches the woman who was chastised earlier by Sonia and casually questions her. She learns that the woman is Sonia Duval's sister, Linda Duval.
Do you have any idea who might be doing this?
The way my dear sister treats people, it would be easier to ask who doesn't want her dead.
Your sisters?
Wouldn't guess, would you?
No, I can see it now you mention it.
I'd look more like her if I could afford her sort of clothes and a year-round tan. Yeah, well, one day I'll show her.
We shift now to Sonia Duval's residence, where Slade has just taken her. She asks Slade to carry in some garment bags. As he approaches the door, we see Detective Morris standing guard outside. Sonia invites Slade into the house. He asks her if she has any enemies.
I just wish I knew why they were doing this.
Do you have any enemies?
Only the critics. They murdered my last show. Maybe they've decided to start on me.
How about personally?
People in this business may be crazy, but they're not mad.
Don't worry, you'll be all right.
As they speak, Sonia pours 2 large glasses of what appears to be wine for herself and Jeff, and she flirts with him a bit.
I feel safe when I'm with you. You know, when they told me I had to have a police bodyguard, you're not at all what I expected.
Well, you were lucky. You could have got Morris.
Are you married?
I was.
You're a very attractive man, Jeff.
The next morning, Slade enters police headquarters where Holly gives him the cold shoulder. She knows he spent the night at Duval's house and assumes the worst. Grisham reviews everyone's assignment for the day at the fashion show. Slade then goes into Holly's office to find out what's bothering her. But before he can ask, Grisham summons him to meet with an attorney. The attorney informs Slade and Nikki Robson of an insurance policy on Sonia Duval for £3 million payable in the event of her death. The policy was taken out by Clifford James, and Slade sees motivation for murder.
Now, this is a corporate policy. It was taken out 6 months ago by Clifford James.
Sonia's business partner.
Yes, it's based on the projected loss of income in the event of her death, £3 million. Clifford James arranged the corporate policy. He would be the sole beneficiary.
Which gives him good reason to kill her.
At the church, Clifford tells Sonia's sister, Linda, to sew some blue fur on the collar of a garment. Linda starts to protest when Holly volunteers to do it. Next, we see Sonia arriving at the church for the fashion show. Due to the attempts and threats on her life, the press is out in full force to cover her arrival. As she enters the church, she tells Slade to park the car in the back. Inside, Sonia spots the garment with the blue fur trim and has a confrontation with Linda.
Linda! What is it? What have you done, you stupid? I said I wanted the lilac fur on this collar. Lilac!
I'm sorry, but
And this stitchwork, it's dreadful.
Clifford said the blue.
So now it's Clifford's fault. I'm fed up with you.
Then you can do without me. I quit.
Good!
Clifford leads Linda to his office.
Outside, Slade has parked the car and managed to drop the keys. As he bends over to pick them up, he is hit from behind and knocked unconscious. The assailant puts Slade in the trunk of the car. As the fashion show begins, the car is taken to a remote spot, and the man who attacked Slade begins dousing the vehicle with gasoline. He sets the car on fire, locks it with the remote key, and tosses the key into the bushes. As the fashion show continues, Slade wakes up in the smoke-filled trunk. He is unable to open the trunk from inside. But suddenly the vehicle is unlocked and the trunk is popped open. Slade stumbles out just before the car explodes. The fashion show ends with Sonia Duvall walking out onto the stage. Suddenly 2 shots ring out and she drops to the floor. Nikki Robson spots a figure with a rifle behind some plastic curtains in the chapel area. Morris takes off outside the church to see a man running from the scene. He radios for help and begins a foot pursuit.
Inside, Clifford and Holly rush to the fallen Sonia. Clifford asks if there's a doctor in the house. When Holly says she has had some medical training, Clifford brushes her aside. A man comes out of the audience claiming to be a doctor. He tells Holly to call an ambulance while he and Clifford move Sonia's body to her office. Slade arrives just as the doctor is leaving the office. He says there's nothing he can do. Sonia is dead. Grissom shows up and she's not happy. Nikki finds the rifle behind a screen. During the debriefing at the church, Holly realizes that the only person not accounted for is Linda Duvall. Slade questions Clifford about Linda and learns that Linda wanted to be a fashion designer.
Linda was hopeless, completely hopeless. I mean, she had this idea that she could design clothes herself, but of course it never came to anything.
Why did she work here?
She needed the money. Sonia helped her in every way that she could, but you know, Linda was never grateful.
The two of them argued before the show began.
Blue fur, lilac fur, I don't know. Maybe Sonia went a bit far, but she was always tense before a big show, and with all the threats. I tried to talk to Linda, but she wouldn't listen. She walked out that door, and that was the last I saw of her.
Holly informs Slade that she got a fingerprint from the gun. It's Linda's. Slade and Holly then drive to Linda's residence, which happens to be a separate apartment above Sonia's house. Searching the apartment, they find all the closets and drawers empty, like Linda packed and left. Holly finds some of Linda's fashion designs and says they're quite good. She doesn't think Linda is the murderer, despite Slade's reasoning.
Well, at least we know who did it.
I don't think we do.
What? Of course it was her. 1, she was jealous of Sonia.
According to Clifford.
2, it was her fingerprints on the rifle. And 3, she's just done a run.
I don't think she has.
Her clothes.
Yes, but why leave these behind? These must have mattered to her more than what she was wearing.
Excuse me? You were the one who named her in the first place. Wasn't it you who found the print on the gun?
Yes, but I talked to her. Linda was unhappy, frustrated, but there wasn't any violence there.
She did it.
No. There's something else. If you ask me, there's something wrong about this whole thing.
Go on. Well, go on.
First, there was a shot. Now, I don't think it came from the chapel.
Well, that was where we found the gun.
Second, why was Clifford so anxious to move Sonia after she'd been shot? That was the last thing I would have done.
Meaning?
Meaning, maybe she was going to tell me something. Maybe there was something Clifford didn't want me to hear.
No, it was Linda and another. We find her, we find the other. Case closed.
Slade? How can you be so
right?
So wrong? I'll show you.
To prove what she says, Holly and Slade go to Holly's apartment and activate the time machine. They travel back 20 hours to 8 p.m. the night before the fashion show. They go to the church to scout things out. As they look around, Slade theorizes that Clifford and Linda are the murderers. He claims Clifford knocked him out and put him in the car while Linda shoots Sonia.
They enter the back of the church where the rifle was found. The area has a clear view of the stage where Sonia was shot. Then Holly realizes that she and Slade need somewhere to spend the night. She can't go to her place because she's already there. Slade says they can use his apartment because he wasn't home that night. They go to Slade's place, which is pretty much empty of furniture. He tells Holly he got the place while working a murder case. It was the murderer's apartment. He offers Holly a beer. She asks if he has any wine, but he doesn't. As Slade goes to fetch the beers, Holly discovers the picture of a woman by Slade's stereo. When she asks who it is, Slade just says it's someone he knows. He then cooks up something to eat, and over the course of the meal, Holly asks Slade some personal questions. Here we learn a little bit about the character of Jeff Slade.
So, tell me then, why did you join the police?
My dad was a policeman.
Was?
Yeah, he's retired. I don't see him anymore.
Do you live here alone?
Mm-hmm.
The girl in the picture?
And she's dead.
Oh.
No, it happened a long time ago.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, don't worry, it's okay.
Did she teach you how to cook?
No, that was my mom.
Later, Holly asks Slade where the other Slade is, and then she remembers he's with Sonia Duvall. This is what was bothering Holly at the first of the episode.
So, where are you?
What?
Well, I'm asleep in my flat.
Mm-hmm.
You won't be back till the morning. Oh my God, you're with her, aren't you?
Who?
Sonia Duvall, how could I forget?
What do you mean?
Here you are entertaining me with pasta and designer beer in one time zone, while at the very same time...
Hang on, whoever gave you that idea?
You did! Boasting about it like...
What?
Do you know how that makes me feel, Slade? Do you know how cheap that makes me feel? No!
Slade storms off to the bedroom and leaves Holly to sleep on the sofa.
Next morning, they're doing surveillance parked outside Sonia Duvall's house. They see Linda Duvall leave her place and get into a car driven by Clifford James. They go back to Linda's room and search it again. This time, all the drawers and closets are full of Linda's clothing. Holly says that proves Linda didn't shoot Sonia.
The thing is, she's left for the show, but she hasn't packed.
Which proves it can't have been her.
Why not?
If she wanted to make a quick getaway after shooting her sister, she'd have got these things ready by now.
Slade tries to explain spending the night with Sonia to Holly when Sonia suddenly appears in Linda's apartment. As Slade and Holly leave, Slade tries to tell Sonia not to go out onto the catwalk after the show.
Holly and Slade arrive at the church in time to see Slade arriving with Sonia. They park behind the church near where Slade will be attacked. Holly says she will watch and get a picture of the attacker. She sees the man, but it isn't Clifford. It's the man who claimed to be a doctor. Holly manages to take his picture just before he drives off in Sonia's car with Slade in the trunk. While Holly follows, Slade hides in the church to watch for the shooter. Holly watches as the doctor sets the car on fire and then rides off on a motorcycle hidden in the bushes. She hurriedly finds the remote key to the car and unlocks it, enabling Slade to get out of the trunk. Meanwhile, Slade, in the church, sees the doctor enter the area behind the stage and sees the doctor put the rifle on the floor and leave. Slade picks up the rifle as the sound of the shots is heard. He is the shadowy figure holding the rifle that Nikki spotted. He drops the rifle and takes off with Morris chasing him. As he runs from Morris and several police officers, Holly sees the doctor leave the church and get on his motorcycle. He picks up another figure with a helmet on, and they ride off together.
Holly finds Slade, and they return to her apartment and the time machine. Slade looks at the pictures of the doctor and says, "The man is not a doctor," but Slade knows who he is. Back in the present, Slade manages to figure it out.
This doctor knocked me out, drove off, and came back on a motorbike.
He went into the church, then when it was all over, he came out again.
But he picked somebody up.
They came out of the office, but I couldn't see who it was. They were wearing a motorbike helmet. Must have been Linda Duvall after all. Did you see who fired the gun?
Nobody fired the gun. The gun didn't fire.
That doesn't make sense.
No, it all makes sense. You just have to look at it the right way.
Holly, Slade, and Grissom are then seen waiting outside a residence. Slade tells Grissom that the house is rented to an Andrew Hopkins, or Dr. Hopkins when it suits him. As a vehicle leaves the house, Grissom and the cops stop the vehicle. Inside are Hopkins and Clifford James, along with Sonia Duvall.
At police headquarters, Slade explains that it was all an insurance fraud.
It was all an insurance fraud. A big, big insurance fraud.
£3 billion worth.
3.2 if there's a bonus yield from the growth in underlying investment.
Hopkins knew that if you're going to fake your own death for that sort of money, you're going to have to do it properly. That's why he started off with the threatening letters and phone calls, and then, of course, that phony shooting at Sonia's house.
They wanted to make sure we'd all be at the fashion show.
What better witnesses than an entire police department?
But we saw Sonia shot. We were there.
Ah, wrong. There were no actual shots. Sonia had recorded them onto the soundtrack.
So who is it in the morgue?
Her sister,
Correct.
Linda Duval.
Clifford James takes Linda into the office and shoots her. He then dresses her in the same clothes as Sonia and hides her in the cupboard in the corner.
So Sonia's pretending to be dead. Clifford and the doctor take her into the office.
And they swap places. Clifford had already planted the gun in the chapel with Linda's fingerprints on it, and Sonia simply cleared out Linda's flat to make it look like she'd done a runner. Easy.
But I don't get it. I mean, how could anyone mistake Linda Duval for her sister?
Nobody looked. Everyone had clearly seen Sonia get shot, so there was no reason to doubt the body wasn't Sonia.
Except it wasn't.
I never trusted her right from the start.
Back at Slade's apartment, he confronts Holly about her idea that he spent the night with Sonia.
Okie dokie, spit it out.
What?
This business with Sonia and me.
I don't want to talk about that.
Well, maybe I do. Ever gave you the idea that I spent the night with her?
You did. I heard you talking back at the office.
Go on.
It's none of my business.
No, tell me. Tell me, I want to know.
It was on the main stairs coming in. You were saying how you spent the night. She twisted your arm. You found it hard to say no. I mean, even Morris knew you'd been given a bed for the night.
Oh.
Not, of course, that it's anything to do with me.
It was a roll-up bed, Holly, in the church. Grisham twisted my arm. She asked me to sleep in the church for extra security. Do you remember that guard that came in when we were in the chapel?
That wasn't you.
Well, how else did I know he was going for a coffee?
And that ends episode 3 of Crime Traveler Fashion Shoot.
Next time, The Revenge of the Chronology Protection Hypothesis. Holly sees a news report telling her Slade has been shot. She travels back in time to try to prevent the shooting. However, if it wasn't for her, Slade might not have been shot in the first place. Well, we've seen the third episode now, Andy. Do you have any particular thoughts? I do want to say that right off, I had a hard time getting into this episode. Out of the whole series, for me, this was the one that I really had to force myself to sit through. I think it took 2 or 3 viewings to actually follow the story.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way a little bit. There were some parts I kind of fast-forwarded a little bit through. Yeah, it was a little, I don't know, slow or kind of, maybe I'm just not into fashion. I don't know.
It's not a good sign when you fast forward.
Right.
There were some issues that I had right at the very beginning of the episode. You remember when Sonia's being interviewed, and then we have that shot from the outside. There's the gunman, and he's in the bushes with a rifle.
Yeah.
Now, it's not like he's a block or a mile away. There's no way he could have missed shooting her from his position. The rifle had a scope on it. How bad a shot do you have to be like 25 feet outside a window with a rifle with a scope and not hit somebody?
Right, and he hits her wine glass.
It's pretty obvious that he missed on purpose.
Well, and that makes me think, I hadn't thought of why that gunman was even there or who he was, but it must have been somebody who was just trying to kind of create the scare, and I think you're right, he probably missed her on purpose.
And then later, when Grissom says she wants Holly to work behind the scenes at the fashion show as a seamstress, do you remember how Holly objects that she can't sew?
Uh-huh.
And then later we see her sitting at a sewing machine? I'm sorry, but to me it looks like Holly knows her way around a sewing machine.
I know. I thought it was a little weird that the fashion people allowed her in. It just seemed weird that they would just sort of let anybody off the street come in and, be in charge of their sewing.
Right, because you would think if they're trying to do some sort of investigation to find out who's making these threats, they don't know if it's somebody on the outside, somebody on the inside. Well, they wouldn't go tell all the people working at the fashion show, hey, we've got these cops who are going to be, planted on the inside here, and we just want you to pretend like they're real real fashion people.
Right. And one thing that I noticed that I thought was kind of funny, on the big logo banner when they unroll it and there's the death threat. And then you've got Clifford saying that the building was locked, but anyone could have gotten in. I was like, what does that mean? The building was locked, but anyone could have gotten in? Is it just locked from the outside with one of those little hook locks? Or like, I didn't understand that statement.
That's true. He does say when Slade asks him if anybody could have gotten in, he says, no, the church was locked. But then he says, in the same breath almost, but anyone could have gotten in.
Right. It's like, oh, okay, I guess you don't have good locks.
So or either that or it's locked and everybody has a key.
Right, yeah.
So much for security.
Yeah.
Or the only other thing I wanted to say was, we're only on the 3rd episode, but I really think this is like the weakest of the whole series. Both, in the flow of the story and the solving of the crime. It all just, maybe it was more convoluted or what, but it just seemed kind of disjointed, and it was really, really hard to follow.
Yeah, although I did like the whole trunk thing with Slade being locked in the trunk and Holly ends up being the one who lets him out. I kind of thought that was cool, but overall the overall story and the fashion show and everything.
Did you notice that camera that Holly was using in the car?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean, it was supposed to be a Polaroid camera.
It looked
Polaroid
like a VCR.
Cameras,
it was so big.
And Polaroid cameras were around in the 70s. They weren't that big. You're right. This thing looked like she was packing a VCR.
Yeah. And another thing about that scene that I thought was funny was, it looks like she's parked 50 or 100 feet away from the guy that she's watching. As she watches that guy club Slade over the head. That guy just must be blind because he doesn't see her. It seemed to me like if she was parked there, it would have been really obvious that he would have looked around and seen someone watching him. And then the same thing when you get to him burning the car.
Well, he doesn't see well because we can obviously surmise that he was the guy with the gun outside the window at the first of the episode. If he can't shoot anybody from 20 feet, how in the world is he going to see her parked like 50 feet away?
Right. He's got to be partially legally blind or something like that. Just one little thing that I noticed that I did think was kind of funny. After Morris had been standing guard at the door, he caught a cold, and then the next day, he's in the office at his computer wiping his nose. And then at the end of the shot, he takes the tissue that he just wiped his nose with and he starts wiping off his monitor with the same tissue. Just thought that was kind of gross.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to go back and watch that. That's great.
Yeah.
But then Morris is that kind of a character.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to the next one because I think it's a little bit more what we expect from Crime Traveler. I will see you next time on the TV Lounge. Thanks for joining us in the TV Lounge. We'd love to hear your thoughts and comments as well. You can email us, the TVLoungePodcast@gmail.com, or visit the website and leave a comment. We're at tvloungepodcast.blogspot.com. See you next time here in the TV Lounge.